3, California's election system is under scrutiny as primary votes continue to be counted. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Annabelle Sedano. So we're expecting an updated vote tally to be released later this afternoon. And here's a look where the numbers stand as of right now. In the race for mayor of Los Angeles, take a look. Nithya Raman moved ahead of Spencer Pratt, but it's still close to say who will move on to the November election to face Mayor Karen Bass. In the governor's race, Republican Steve Hilton is maintaining his hold for that second spot. More than 2.5 million ballots still need to be counted. And it's been almost a week since Election Day, and the high-profile races aren't the only ones that don't have a clear outcome just yet. This is a live look at the ballot processing center in the City of Industry. NBC4's Brittany Hope made a visit this morning and spoke to the registrar of voters for an explanation on that timeline.
This isn't the first election where it has taken upwards of a week plus to get those results. Can you talk about why, specifically in LA County, it does take so long as compared to other places?
Yeah, and it's not really specific to LA County, it's really specific to California, and it's the model that California has adopted, our legislature has adopted, to allow voters multiple options for how and when to cast their ballots. And what happens is, in an election like this, we had the bulk of those ballots come in at the end of the process, right? So not late, it was on time, it's within the time period provided by law, but late with respect to timing in that voting period. A really large portion of those ballots turned in at the drop boxes on Election Day, late in the day on Election Day. Those can't come back here until after 8 o'clock, and those ballots have to go through the same verification, security, and care as the ballots that were received 2 weeks before the election. So, you know, just to put that in perspective, late Tuesday night, we had 500,000 ballots that descended upon us that have to go through that process. We need to be able to account for those, and we need to be sure that those votes are counted correctly.
All right, so for more context, want to bring in our Conan Nolan. You know, Conan, as we just heard Brittany say there, this isn't the first time that we're seeing this. You know, California has been widely criticized for its mail-in voting system that we have. Could we change that at all?
Yes, we could. And I think the U.S. Supreme Court is looking at a decision. They're going to render it either later this month or next month on a case out of Mississippi that could have an impact on California. What it would essentially do, based on our knowledge of the points and authorities that the court took under submission, is that if a ballot is cast on Election Day or before Election Day and arrives at the registrar's office on Election Day, it can be counted. But it would, I believe, invalidate the state's law that allows ballots to arrive up to 7 days after Election Day. The justices, the conservative justices, certainly said that Election days in the federal Constitution and, or I should say, in federal statute, and it says Election Day. It doesn't say election week. And so that decision will have an impact on how we count ballots in the future. But right now, Annabelle, two things can be true at the same time. You can have a process that's fair, that's legal, and where there's no fraud. But you can also have a process that, despite all that, looks terrible and does not instill a lot of confidence in the system. And I think that's what we're seeing here.
You know, and speaking of that, there's a lot of talk on social media about those numbers, right? Especially when it comes to the mayor's race. So as you know, as we've mentioned, Nithya Raman now in second place there. Does Spencer Pratt still have a chance?
You know, he does, but the problem Spencer Pratt has is that he has lost significantly in every round, every vote drop since the election. And that's because the mail-in Democrats vote by mail. That's generally how it was in 2020. Remember when Donald Trump was running, he said during the pandemic, he said in 2018 or 2020, you need to go in person. So Republicans started voting on Election Day, and therefore their ballots were counted first. Democrats voted by mail, their votes were counted last. And so it looks like, as in the case of this race for mayor, that Spencer Pratt had a 10-point lead. But when you have, and the registrar just said, you have 750,000 votes still to count, over time, if they are trending blue, that lead is going to evaporate, and that's exactly what happened here. He still has a chance, but it's not looking good.
Okay, the governor's race, it looks like it's going to be Becerra and Hilton. Any surprises there?
You know, no. I think what happened is that there was a couple of polls at the end of the election that robbed Chad Bianco of votes. Frankly, there was one poll from Emerson that had Becerra and Steyer 1 and 2, and that Hilton was third. The Republicans did not want to be locked out of the November election. So I think a lot of people that were going to vote for the sheriff of Riverside County said, no, I'm going to go with Steve Hilton to make sure we have a choice. So I think that the way the polls were looking had a play on how people strategically voted. Not a surprise. I think Hilton's he still has several 100,000 vote lead. It's going to be very difficult for Steve
Hilton.
It's Steve Hilton, Tom Steyer to make up that deficit. But there's still, plenty of votes to cast. I'd say a quarter, 20% of the votes out there still to be counted.
All right. Again, you just have to wait and see.
Yes, and be patient. But understand, unlike the president just tweeted out on social media, hey, it's impossible for Nithya Raman to have gotten those votes. No, it's not. It was very possible. In fact, a lot of people expected it.
Okay. All right. We're going to circle back. I know you're coming back for the 4 o'clock hour. We'll touch base then. All right. Thank you, Conan. And remember, you can track the election results on the go with the NBCLA app or on our website, NBCLA.com. Just click on the continuing coverage button on the front page.